Is up, movie viewers? Dena Views and Reviews here, asking what you watching. Today I am watching the Book of Clarence. It is written by James Samuel, M. Hodge Maya, directed by James Samuel, produced by Gary Grant, Jay-Z, James Lister, Gianluca Larini, and Tendo Najinda. This movie stars Lakeith Stanfield. He plays two roles, Clarence and Thomas, who are twin brothers. Omar Sy plays Barabbas, R.J. Seiler plays Elijah, Anna Diop plays Barinia, David Aiello plays John the Baptist, Michael Ward plays Judas, Alfred Woodard plays the Virgin Mary, Tiana Taylor stars as Mary Magdalene, Caleb McLaughlin as Dirty Zeke, James McAvoy as Pontius Pilate, and Nicholas Pinnock as Jesus. Now, the Book of Clarence takes place in Jerusalem, AD 33. It is a bit of a comedy, a drama, action adventure while paralleling the biblical story of Jesus. The story centers around this street hustler called Clarence, who happens to be the twin brother of Thomas, as I've said before. And Thomas is said to be one of the apostles of Jesus Christ. Now, Clarence is a drug smoking, a drug dealing, atheist hustler who finds himself deeply in love with Varinia, who is the little sister of notorious gangster that goes by the name Jedediah the Terrible. Clarence and his bestie Elijah, who is once again played by R.J. Seiler, can both be found traveling around smoking or selling weed and hustling their way through the town as well as life in general. Clarence has borrowed money from Jedediah the Terrible in order to participate in a chariot race against Mary Magdalene, a race in which he ends up losing to Mary because Mary can drive those chariots. And as a result, Clarence and Elijah must now discover a way to repay this money that is owed back to Jedediah the Terrible or lose their lives. So they both begin brainstorming on how they can come up with a plan or some kind of hustle to keep Jedediah from killing them. One of the schemes is for Clarence to become baptized by John the Baptist in hopes that by doing so, God himself would protect him from Jedediah. But this baptism was hilarious to me. That John the Baptist was a real trip. He knew exactly what and why Clarence had came to get baptized, and he called him out on it. After his peculiar engagement with John the Baptist, he decides to come up with a better idea. And that idea is to become an apostle himself. Clarence's idea is that Jesus' followers or disciples would have to protect him and let no harm come to him if he becomes one of them. But of course, his brother Thomas is well aware of his scheme and he has to change his plan. So he then decides that he himself should become a Messiah. But in order to do so, he must first go and find Jesus' mother and speak with her and find out what tricks Jesus is using and how he is doing all of these miraculous illusions that the multitude of people keep witnessing. So he goes and he visits Jesus' mother, Mary, and she tells him there are no tricks. He's not doing anything nefarious. So Clarence declares that he will just have to use his friends to help him perform fake miracles and tricks in public, and this will then allow him to raise the money to pay off Jedediah the Terrible, and he can win the heart of his love interest as well as the heart and minds of the people. And with his fake pre-rehearsed miracles, surely no harm would come to him from Jedediah. That is, if the people love him, financially support him, and believe him to be a Messiah. With this plan in mind, he declared himself to be a Messiah, even though he is a stark atheist that does not believe in Jesus' immaculate conception or any of the miraculous phenomena Jesus was said to have performed before the masses. Clarence begins his task of preaching to the many and performing his fake miracles that he has rehearsed with his friend. And people are listening. They began to follow him, and they even gave him money. And this caught the eye of more than just Jedediah. Let me just say, some of the conversations were cloaked in this kind of subtle humor throughout this movie that may very well have gone over a few people's head, but I found that to be so hilariously funny. And it was partially why I gave this film 4 stars out of 5. I almost spit out my drink laughing when the guy who was playing Jesus told his disciples, "One of y'all Negroes gonna sing like a canary," referring to Judas. That part had me laughing. But I felt like this film was a brilliant take on the biblical interpretation, and it made it reflect much of what is happening in modern times, which may even make it more relatable to some that may watch this film. I simply like the way the original people looked in this film in these biblical robes and garments. Whether or not admitted to, I'm sure some have wondered where are the black people at in the Bible. So it was good to see this. I can appreciate the writer or the director's perspective and interpretation in this movie, and it is what made it a good watch for me. Religious humor can sometimes make certain people a bit uncomfortable. It can put others in a temporarily emotional state of mind or even confusion. And some people are just standoffish or stand back when people refer to God in movies. Even though that is true, I have to say, there has been times when you've read or seen things having to do with religion that I'm sure you have questioned. And you have questioned how it is presented, whether it has been rewritten or even omitted in some instances. And we dare not talk about the reality of those in our times who have managed to manipulate the mind consistently through religion or spirituality in the name of God, resulting in harming people, controlling others, subjugating others. So this was so relatable. And I'm saying this literally and figuratively. It was a beautiful movie to me because I like how it was made so modern and relatable. Seeing the biblical characters represented by the original people, and even though there was some humor, it still managed to maintain and pull the viewer into the emotional story of Jesus and his end of life suffering and difficulties. Observing his crucifixion, still watching this movie, left one with a wave of emotions: sympathy, sorrow, heartbreak, and eventual joy. I even found myself shedding a few tears, and afterwards, I was feeling impressed at the greatness of how the filmmaker or the writer, how it was written and executed. I really liked how the writer, or shall I say director, was able to make the scenes parallel the biblical accounts, but it was so modern. They modernized the characters and the situations in a way that made it so very relatable. It took you along the journey. You were along for the ride with the main character as he journeyed through self discovery, enlightenment, and eventual acceptance, then full completion. It is a much needed change from the same old, same old. The music, the actors, the symbolism was clear and on point. It was hilarious, yet it instilled or revealed a message in the end about one's belief, one's about oppression and finding oneself and purpose in life. And that is why I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Now, the Book of Clarence is rated PG-13, and if you are interested in checking it out, you most certainly can, because it is now streaming on Amazon Prime, it's on Netflix, and it's also on Apple TV. If you have not already, be sure to subscribe, leave your comments on what you thought of this movie. Join me weekly for a new movie review and our movie recommendation. And I want you to remember, it's my view, Now, what you watching?